What if I told you that somewhere deep in the mountains of East Java, there's a hidden village no map will ever show you? A place where time freezes, where strangers smile without speaking, and where the only way in is if you're invited. Ari thought he was just going on a weekend hike with friends, but the mountain had other plans. The mist swallowed him whole, and what he found on the other side was not a trail, not a campsite, but an entire village, silent, eerie, and impossibly alive. Locals whisper that the mountain is a gate, pulling chosen people into a world where the rules are different, where you can lose more than your way. You can lose your very reality. And when Ari met a beautiful woman named Dewi in that place, he realized the mountain wasn't just watching him, it was calling him. Are you ready to step into the fog? Don't blink. Don't breathe too loudly. And remember, once you enter, you may not come back the same.
Whoa, I'm getting goosebumps here. That was the thought running through Ari's mind as he stared into the thickening mist between the trees. Something stood there, motionless, shadow-like, almost human. But let's rewind. This story doesn't begin in the fog. It begins in a small coffee stall in Lamongan, East Java. Ari sat there alone, his fingers lazily scrolling through his phone, a cup of black coffee steaming beside him. He was always like this, quiet, detached, more comfortable in his own company than in a crowd. His friends would joke that he was allergic to people, but the truth was simpler. Ari was an introvert, down to the bone. He didn't hate people, he just felt more alive in silence. And the silence he loved most was the silence of the mountains. Unlike other hikers who joined open trips or group climbs, Ari preferred solo hiking, moving slowly, inhaling the scent of wet earth, listening to the whisper of leaves. Those were his escapes from the chaos of life. But that day, something felt different. As he scrolled through his hiking group's chat, he saw a message from Abdi, his most trusted friend when it came to mountains. "We'll meet Saturday morning at the base camp. Target camp at post 2 before nightfall." The group chat exploded with replies. Everyone seemed excited, making plans for food, gear, even joking about who would carry extra noodles. Ari just stared at the screen, silent, as always. Inside him, something stirred, a strange shiver. Not fear, not excitement, but an odd pull. He whispered to himself, "Should I go?" Ari had never climbed this mountain before. He'd heard the stories, how beautiful it was, how dangerous, how mystical. People said its trails weren't ordinary. Some called it a gateway. Some said it could hold you there forever if it wanted to. That thought should have made him hesitate. Instead, it made him curious. He tapped open a private chat with Abdi. "Bro, I'll join, but I'll hike separately. I don't want to be in the crowd." The reply came fast. "No problem, Ari. We'll still look out for each other. If anything happens, just call. Got it?" Ari exhaled, a small smile curling on his lips. Abdi had that effect, making every climb feel safe. But what Ari didn't know was that this climb would be nothing like the others. The mountain wasn't just waiting for hikers, it was waiting for him. Saturday morning came. Ari woke early, slung his backpack over his shoulders, and sipped one last cup of hot coffee before leaving. His motorbike roared through the cold morning air as he made his way toward the mountain. The ride was long, but Eerie was used to it. Long rides gave him time to think, to empty his head. But as he got closer, the air grew sharper, biting at his skin in a way that wasn't just cold, it was unsettling. At the village market near the base camp, Eerie stopped to ask for directions. Then he texted Abdi, "I'm at the market. Where are you guys?" The reply came minutes later, "Still packing at the main base camp. Just come here." When Eerie arrived, he saw motorbikes parked, tents being checked, gear spread everywhere. It was a scene of excitement. Abdi spotted him first. "Yo, Eerie, long time, huh? Don't miss the briefing." They laughed, catching up briefly, but Eerie's eyes were already scanning the trail beyond. Something about it made him uneasy. The others were buzzing with chatter, laughter, jokes. Eerie stayed on the edge, quiet as always, sipping water. Then Abdi approached again. "You sure you want to hike alone?" "I'll stay close, not too far behind. Just don't get lost. The fog here's a pain in the ass." "I know." Eerie smiled faintly, but inside he felt it, that strange pull again. When the group finally set off, Eerie kept his distance. The trail began with paved roads, passing villagers' homes, kids waving as the hikers marched by. But soon the asphalt ended, and dirt paths led them into the fields of tea plantations. Laughter and conversations floated from the group ahead, stories about jobs, heartbreaks, silly jokes. Eerie heard it all at first, but the further he walked, the quieter those voices became, until there was nothing. Only fog. Only silence. Eerie stopped, his heart quickening. He looked ahead. No hikers. No backpacks. No silhouettes. Just the mist, swallowing everything. He muttered, "It's fine. I'll catch up." But he couldn't shake the feeling that the mist wasn't just covering the trail. It was watching him. And soon, it would show him something he was never meant to see.
Ari stood frozen in the middle of the trail. The mist around him was no ordinary mountain fog. It pressed in like a living thing, thick and suffocating, whispering against his skin. The laughter of his friends had vanished completely, replaced by a silence so heavy it made his chest ache. He turned, half expecting to see the group behind him. Nothing. No footsteps, no voices, just the shifting white haze, swallowing the tea fields whole. "Shit," he muttered under his breath. He quickened his pace, trying to catch up, but the more he walked, the more the landscape changed. The neatly lined tea bushes gave way to tangled shrubs and thorny vines. The path narrowed, twisting unnaturally, as if the mountain itself was rearranging its trails. His pulse quickened. Something was wrong. He knew the trail to Post 2 was supposed to be straight, easy to follow. That's what the guide at base camp had said. But here... Ari stopped again. Ahead, the path split. The left trail dipped down into a valley, swallowed by an even thicker fog. From somewhere deep inside, faint footsteps echoed. Soft, uneven, almost deliberate. The right trail rose upward, narrower, lined with clawing bushes. It looked rougher, but somehow more real. Ari pulled out his phone. No signal. Not even a single bar. The compass app spun aimlessly, refusing to settle. He cursed under his breath, shoving the phone back into his pocket. All right, right side it is. He turned toward the narrower path. His boots crunched against damp soil as he stepped forward. Immediately, the air changed. The birds were gone, the cicadas had stopped. Even the wind seemed to vanish. The only sound left was the dull thud of his own footsteps. Then, Movement. From the corner of his eye, something stirred in the bushes. Ari whipped his head to the left. A shadow, human-shaped. He froze. His breath hitched. The figure moved, slow and unnatural, as though its limbs were stiff wood. It drifted between the bushes, faceless in the mist. Then it vanished. Ari staggered back, heart hammering. And then another shadow appeared, this time on the right, moving away from him, slipping into the undergrowth. Not people, Ari whispered, voice trembling. Not hikers. He tightened the grip on his trekking pole. Every nerve in his body screamed at him to turn back, but something stronger held him still. A strange magnetic pull, the same one he'd felt when he first read Abdi's message. The mountain was calling. Step by step, Ari pushed forward. The mist thickened until he could barely see 3 feet ahead. Then, like a mirage, a structure emerged. A towering wooden gate, its beams rotting, carved with symbols Ari couldn't understand. A crude offering table stood in front of it, and behind the table, a man. Old, wrinkled, wearing a wide farmer's hat that cast his face in shadow. He leaned on the table, motionless, eyes hidden, mouth tight. On the table sat a small wooden box with a slit on top, like a donation box. Ari's throat gried. He stopped a few steps away, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Then the old man spoke. His voice was barely louder than the mist itself, raspy and deliberate. If you want to continue, put something inside. A token of respect. Ari blinked. His first instinct was to laugh. This had to be some kind of joke, right? Maybe a prank by locals. But there was no humor in his tone, no movement in his body. He was as still as stone, waiting. Ari's eyes darted around. No other path. The fog had closed in completely. With a shaky breath, Ari pulled his wallet from his pocket. Inside, a single bill, 10,000 rupiah, just under $1. He slid it into the box. The old man smiled faintly, the first hint of life in his weathered face. Thank you. Ari nodded awkwardly. Yeah. The man stepped aside, gesturing to the gate. Ari swallowed hard, then stepped forward. His boots crunched against damp soil as he stepped forward. Immediately, the air changed. The birds were gone, the cicadas had stopped. Even the wind seemed to vanish. The only sound left was the dull thud of his own footsteps. Then, movement. From here, he saw a village. Stone-paved paths stretched ahead, lined with crooked houses, their walls damp and discolored, their roofs sagging under age. A vendor cart stood abandoned at the corner, its vegetables wilting. Children ran across the street, but their laughter made no sound. Everywhere people moved, slowly, quietly, their faces blank, their eyes hollow. No one spoke, no one smiled, no one looked at him. Ari's breath hitched, his heart pounded in his ears. What the hell is this place? He whispered. He stepped deeper into the village, his presence ignored as if he were invisible. A woman carried a tray of fruit to her porch, set it down, and went back inside. A boy's ball bounced against Ari's boot, but the boy picked it up without even acknowledging him. It was as if Ari wasn't even real. The deeper he walked, the heavier the air grew. Time felt wrong. His watch still read 4:30 p.m., the same as when he had last checked before the fog swallowed him. His phone, too, frozen. His body felt light, too light. He should have been sweating, aching from the climb. Instead, he felt nothing, not even thirst. He stopped at a small food stall. Inside, An old woman sat motionless behind the counter, eyes glazed, as though waiting. For the first time since entering the village, someone spoke. Her voice cracked the silence like a match striking in the dark. "What would you like, young man?" His knees nearly buckled. She was looking at him, directly.
Finally, someone saw him. Aries' pulse hammered in his ears as the old woman's eyes locked onto his. It was such a simple thing, a stranger acknowledging his presence, but here, in this eerie, soundless village, it felt like a miracle. The woman sat hunched behind the wooden counter of her stall, her skin pale, her hands fanning lifeless embers in a clay stove that refused to burn. Her stall looked like something frozen in time, dusty jars of snacks, an old glass case with crackers inside, and a kettle that gave off no steam. Her lips cracked into the faintest of smiles. "What would you like, young man?" Aries stepped closer, cautious. His throat was dry, though he hadn't been thirsty moments ago. Maybe just a sweet tea?" The woman nodded, as if she'd been waiting for that answer. She disappeared behind a curtain at the back of the stall. Aries sat down on the rough wooden bench outside, glancing at the deserted street. Something gnawed at him. Time. His watch still read 4:30 p.m., the same frozen minute it had shown since he'd entered the gate. His phone screen glowed the same number. He frowned, rubbing at his wrist. "Broken or stuck?" he muttered. But no, this was more than broken machinery. This was something else. The old woman returned, placing a steaming cup before him. "Here, drink." The tea smelled real enough, warm and comforting. Aries hesitated, then lifted the glass to his lips. The flavor was simple, sweet, faintly bitter, normal. Too normal. His chest eased with the warmth. Maybe, just maybe, things weren't as sinister as they seemed. Then, a sound behind him. The scrape of wood against wood. A chair being pulled out. Aries stiffened. Slowly he turned. A young woman had appeared, silently, impossibly. She sat down beside him as if she had been there all along. Her hair, black and shoulder-length, gleamed as though freshly washed. Her skin was porcelain pale, her features delicate, almost unreal. She wore a faded yellow dress, its color sickly pale, like the last echo of sunlight before dusk. Her voice was soft, clear, and utterly human. "One sweet tea for me, too, please." The old woman nodded, shuffling back inside. Aries stared, struggling to find words. The girl smiled faintly, turning her head toward him. Her eyes caught his, and in that instant he knew. She wasn't like the others. "Mas," she said, her voice gentle, almost teasing. "You're not from here, are you?" Aries swallowed hard. No, I'm a hiker. I lost my trail in the fog, ended up here." Her smile didn't fade. "Ah, that happens sometimes. This village, it has a way of confusing travelers, making the far seem near and the near seem far." Aries leaned forward, lowering his voice. "What is this place?" The girl didn't answer right away. She accepted the tea the old woman placed before her, sipped it slowly, and set the glass back down. Only then did she glance at Aries again. "Not everyone can see this village as clearly as you do. If you can, it means you were called." Aries' stomach dropped. Called? By who? She tilted her head, studying him. For a moment she looked almost sad. By the mountain, or by something that lives within it. The words pressed against his chest like ice. He wanted to laugh it off, to call her crazy, but he couldn't. Deep down, some part of him already knew she was right. He forced a weak cuckle. So, if I was called, does that mean I can leave? The girl's lips curved into that same faint, haunting smile. She lifted her hand, pointing toward the far end of the street. "There," she whispered. Eerie followed her gaze. Through the shifting mist, something loomed. A bus, rusted, silent, its paint faded, its windows opaque. Its door stood open, as if waiting. His chest tightened. That bus?" The girl nodded. "If you wish to leave, that is your way out. Don't linger too long here. This place, it has a way of making people forget." The silence between them grew heavy. Eerie's thoughts spun wildly. He wanted to ask more questions, to demand answers, but then she looked at him directly, her eyes dark and endless. "My name is Dewi." Eerie's breath caught. The name seared into him, deep and unforgettable. And before he could respond, Dewi stood. She placed a coin on the counter, nodded politely to the old woman, and walked away into the fog. Eerie scrambled to his feet, craning his neck. "Wait, Dewi!" But she was gone, swallowed by the mist as if she'd never been there. The old woman returned to her seat, her expression vacant once more, as if Dewi had never existed. Eerie stumbled into the street, his heart pounding. He scanned every corner, every alley, desperate to catch a glimpse of yellow fabric. Nothing. Only silence. Only the villagers still drifting in their slow, lifeless routines. And then, his foot struck something. He glanced down. A bill. Crisp, green, impossibly clean. 100,000 rupiah note. Frowning, he bent to pick it up. Another note glimmered a few feet ahead. Then another, and another. A trail of money leading straight toward the silent bus. Eerie's hand trembled as he gathered the bills. They felt wrong in his grip. Too stiff, too smooth, almost like plastic. When he squinted, the numbers blurred, the faces on the notes smudged like wet ink. He stuffed them into his pocket, heart racing. Then he realized the villagers had stopped. Every single one of them. Men, women, children, all frozen in place. Their heads slowly turned toward him, their hollow eyes fixed on the wad of money in his hand. His chest clenched. His breath came shallow and sharp. I shouldn't have picked it up. But it was too late. The bus door yawned open, silent, waiting, and the eyes of the village would not leave him. Ari froze in the middle of the narrow cobblestone street, his chest tight, his hands clammy around the strange bills he just picked up. The villagers, every man, woman, and child, stood utterly still, their hollow gazes locked on him. No one spoke, no one blinked. The silence pressed against his skull until he thought it might crack him open. Clutching the warped money tighter, he forced a step forward, then another. Their eyes followed, in perfect unison, like puppets strung to the same invisible hand. He swallowed hard. I just want to leave." His voice came out a whisper, trembling, devoured instantly by the fog. The bus loomed closer now, waiting at the end of the road like a predator crouched in ambush. Its paint was dull and flaking, its tires half sunken into the earth, yet its door hung open, black and yawning. The trail of money led straight to it. Ari's boots echoed unnaturally loud as he approached. Each step felt like a violation, as though he were walking not on stone, but on glass that might shatter beneath him. Finally, he reached the bus. The villagers still hadn't moved. They only stared. Ari hesitated at the steps. his chest heaving. Every instinct screamed to turn back, to flee, but Dewi's words rang in his skull. "If you wish to leave, that is your way out." He gritted his teeth, shoved the money deep into his jacket, and climbed aboard. The moment his left foot touched the bus floor, the air changed. The outside sounds, what little there were, vanished. Inside was too quiet, too clean. Rows of seats stretched before him, empty but pristine. No dust, no torn cushions, as if no one had ever sat here. His eyes drifted to the front. A driver sat hunched over the wheel, not moving, not turning, just there. He licked his lips. Excuse me?" The driver didn't respond, didn't even breathe. His head was tilted slightly downward, obscured by the brim of the cap. His hands gripped the wheel in a death-like stillness. Ari slid into a seat near the window, muscles taut. The door creaked shut behind him with a metallic groan. Then, without a sound of ignition, the bus lurched forward. Ari's stomach flipped. There was no engine rumble, no vibrations underfoot. It moved like a ghost, gliding silently into the fog. He pressed his face to the window, watching the village recede. The hollow-eyed people remained frozen in place. Their blank stares followed until they disappeared into the mist. He shuddered, leaning back. His watch still read 4:30. His phone, too. Time refused to move. Minutes or hours, he couldn't tell, passed in silence. The bus wound endlessly through twisting, fog-drenched roads. He felt as if it were circling, going nowhere. Finally, with a sudden jerk, the bus stopped. The door hissed open. Ari rose cautiously, clutching his backpack. His knees wobbled as he stepped down onto the earth. The air hit him like a hammer. Familiar, real. He blinked against the brightness, dim but natural, the color of late afternoon. He was back. The same narrow dirt path stretched ahead, flanked by shrubs and roots. The same tea fields lay just beyond the fog. And 200 meters away, towering above him, stood the same wooden gate he'd passed before. Only this time, the old man in the farmer's hat was gone. Ari's throat tightened. He stepped forward, legs trembling. As he passed under the gate, the fog melted like smoke. The forest sounds returned all at once, the chirp of birds, the buzz of cicadas, the whisper of wind. The weight on his chest lifted, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion. His knees buckled. He dropped his backpack onto the dirt and collapsed beside it, sucking in ragged breaths. Sweat poured down his neck, soaking his shirt, though he hadn't felt a drop until this moment. His watch ticked again. 5 p.m. Time was moving. For a long moment, Ari sat in stunned silence, staring at the ground. His heart pounded, his lungs burned, and yet, despite everything, he knew it had been real. The tea stall, the villagers, Dewi, the bus. He wiped his face, forcing himself to stand. His legs shook as he hefted his backpack again. He somehow made it down the path, through the tea fields, back toward base camp. His mind screamed at him to forget, to shove the memory down deep. But his pocket weighed heavy. He reached inside, pulled out the bills he'd collected. His stomach lurched. The money had changed. The unscripted notes were faded, blurred, their ink smudged beyond recognition. They felt stiff, unterrible, like some material not of this world. Ari stuffed them back quickly, his hands trembling. By the time he stumbled into base camp, the sky had darkened. Voices rose around him, familiar human voices. "Mas Ari!" He looked up. One of the camp organizers stared at him, wide-eyed. "You just came down? Abdi's group already returned yesterday. They said you went missing." Ari blinked, his breath catching. "Yesterday? No, I just..." He pulled out his phone, checked the date. It wasn't the 2nd of the month anymore.
It was the 4th. He had lost an entire day. Ari's head spun as the words echoed in his skull. An entire day, gone, wiped clean as if the mountain itself had swallowed it. The base camp staff looked at him with a mix of shock and suspicion. "Moss, you don't understand. Abdi's group came down yesterday. They searched for you. Everyone was panicking. They thought you'd disappeared." Ari staggered backward, shaking his head. "No, that's impossible. I was just on the trail, just a few hours." But even as he said it, his voice faltered. He knew the truth. He hadn't just been hiking. He had been somewhere else, somewhere that wasn't supposed to exist. He fumbled for his phone. Notifications poured in, a flood of unanswered messages from Abdi, from the hiking group, even from numbers he didn't recognize. All frantic, all asking the same thing. "Where are you?" His calendar mocked him with its cold, unshakable truth. September 4th. Not the 2nd, the day he'd started climbing. Not the 3rd, when Abdi had returned. The 4th. He had vanished for over 24 hours. Ari sat heavily on a bench, his hands trembling as he scrolled through the messages. Abdi's voice notes were the worst, desperate, ragged, filled with fear. "Lang, where the hell are you? We're searching near the tea fields." "We checked the ridge, nothing. Did you take another trail?" "If you don't show up by evening, I'm reporting this." Ari's chest tightened. He replayed the last moments before the village, the gate, the old man, the donation box, the fog. None of it fit into logic. None of it belonged in the ordinary world. His hand slipped into his jacket pocket. The bills were still there. He pulled them out, unfolding the faded notes. The sight made his stomach turn. The currency was barely recognizable. The numbers had blurred to the point of nonsense. The faces of the national heroes, erased, smeared like half-forgotten memories. The paper was too stiff, too resistant, refusing to tear no matter how hard he pulled. It was proof. Cold, tangible proof that what he'd seen hadn't been a dream. He shoved the bills back into his pack, his breathing shallow. The world tilted around him. "Moss," one of the staff murmured gently, "maybe you should rest first. You look pale." Ari nodded numbly. Rest, yes, that's what he needed. But he knew no sleep would bring peace. That night, he checked into a small lodge near the base camp. The room was simple: a bed, a desk, a flickering light bulb. He dropped his pack in the corner, sat heavily at the desk, and buried his face in his hands. Everything replayed in flashes: the silent villagers, the bus, Davy's smile, the way her name lingered in his mind, refusing to fade. He lay down eventually, exhaustion dragging him into uneasy sleep. But peace did not come. Instead, the dream did. The fog wrapped around him like a living shroud, the cobblestone paths unfolded beneath his feet. And there she was, Davy. Her yellow dress swayed gently as she stood at the end of the street, her dark eyes locked on his. She raised her hand, beckoning him closer. "Davy! Come back." He woke with a jolt, drenched in cold sweat, his chest pounding. The clock on the wall glared back, 2:30 a.m. He rubbed his face, shivering. It was just a dream, he told himself. Just my mind replaying trauma. But deep down, he knew better. Davy wasn't a dream. she was waiting. The weeks that followed blurred into uneasy monotony. Ari returned to Lamogan, resumed his daily routines, tried to bury himself in work. Outwardly, he was the same quiet, introverted man he had always been. But at night, the dreams came. Sometimes he found himself back in the tea fields, fog curling at his feet. Sometimes he stood before the gate, the old man's shadow looming. But always, Davy was there. Sometimes in the stall, sipping tea. Sometimes in the street, watching him. Sometimes closer, close enough that he could smell the faint scent of flowers on her skin. And always, she called his name. Ari, soft, patient, inevitable. Each time he woke gasping, drenched in sweat, his heart racing. And each time, the memory felt sharper, more real. He stopped telling himself they were just dreams. They weren't. They were invitations. 2 months later, on a quiet evening, Ari sat at his rented room's desk, staring at a notebook filled with frantic scribbles. He had written everything he could remember, the timeline, the details, the impossible bills. At the top of the page, circled over and over, was her name, Davy. The air in the room felt heavy, charged. He couldn't take it anymore. He picked up his phone and scrolled to Abdi's contact. His thumb hovered, trembling, then pressed. "Bro, I'm going back to the mountain. This weekend. Will you come?" The reply came minutes later. "Are you out of your mind after what happened? You disappeared for a day, Ari. We thought you were dead." "I need to," Ari wrote back. "There's something I have to finish." A pause, then another reply. "You're serious?" "Yes." The typing bubble flickered, disappeared, returned. Finally, Abdi sent, "I can't go. Work's insane. But listen, don't do anything stupid. If you go, update me every step. Don't vanish again." Ari stared at the screen for a long time before replying, "I promise." But he knew. Some promises couldn't be kept. He packed that night, his movements slow but certain. Clothes, gear, food, and one extra item he had never carried before, a small mirror. He didn't know why, but instinct told him he would need it. At the bottom of his pack, hidden beneath spare clothes, he tucked the warped, unearthly bills, the proof, the tether. He lay down, but did not sleep. He didn't need dreams tonight. The mountain was waiting, and so was Davy.
The words echoed in Ari's chest as he tightened the straps of his backpack. The early morning air bit at his skin, but his mind felt numb, his body moving on instinct. He wasn't just hiking this time. He wasn't chasing views or testing endurance. He was walking straight back into something he didn't understand, something that had already swallowed a day of his life. But Dewe's voice lingered in his dreams, soft and unyielding. "Come back." By the time Ari reached the base camp, the sun was barely climbing the horizon. The air was sharp and clear, the kind of morning that normally promised a good climb. "Solo, Mas?" the guard at the registration post asked, glancing at the logbook. Ari nodded. "Yeah, just me." The man frowned slightly. "Be careful. The trail's quiet today. Most hikers are coming tomorrow. Watch the fog. It's tricky around here." "I know," Ari replied. He signed his name, paid the fee, and walked toward the trailhead. His boots crunched against gravel, his breath rising in faint clouds. For the first stretch, everything looked normal. Villagers tending gardens, children running barefoot, stray dogs wandering lazily across the dirt roads. Ari felt almost foolish. Maybe this time it would just be a hike. Maybe the last trip had been some kind of hallucination, a trick of exhaustion. But then he reached the tea fields. The same rows of green stretched before him, dew glistening on their leaves. The same breeze rolled over the hills. And yet, the air shifted. Ari stopped, his skin prickling. The sunlight dimmed, as if a veil had been drawn across the sky. The sound of birds thinned, fading into an unnatural hush. His breath quickened. "It's starting again," he whispered. He forced himself forward, scanning the paths more carefully this time. Every branching trail, every shadow in the bushes. His eyes darted constantly, searching for the impossible. Hours slipped by. He passed post 1 without incident, then post 2. His watch ticked normally. His phone worked. For a moment, relief flooded him. Maybe this time, nothing strange would happen. But deep down, he knew better. By midday, he reached a wide clearing where the trails split toward post 3. The sun shone overhead, bright and sharp, but Ari's chest felt heavy. He pulled the small mirror from his pocket, holding it in the light. His own face stared back at him, sweaty, pale, eyes ringed with sleepless nights. He didn't know why, but the reflection steadied him. He tucked it away and kept walking. The trail narrowed, swallowed by forest. Shadows deepened, the air grew thick, sticky, almost suffocating. The birds were gone again. And then it came. That smell. The sweet, unmistakable scent of flowers. Ari stopped dead, his stomach dropping. It was the same fragrance that had filled the village streets 2 months ago, the same one that clung to Dewee's presence. His knees trembled. She's here. He turned slowly and saw her, a figure in yellow, half hidden among the trees. Dewee. Her dark hair framed her pale face, her eyes fixed on him. She didn't speak. She didn't move. Ari's throat tightened. Dewee. She tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. Then, without a word, she turned and walked deeper into the forest. Ari's chest burned. Every nerve screamed at him not to follow, but his feet betrayed him. Step after step, he trailed behind her, his breath ragged. The fog thickened with every stride, swallowing the trail until the mountain itself seemed to vanish. Ari stumbled over roots and rocks, but Dewee's pale figure glowed faintly ahead, guiding him. Finally, the outline of a gate rose through the mist. The same gate, its wood dark and ancient, its carvings strange and incomprehensible. This time, no old man waited at the table, no donation box sat at its feet. Dewee stopped a few steps before the gate, turning toward Ari. For the first time, her lips moved. "You're ready." Ari's breath caught. Ready for what? Her eyes softened, and for a heartbeat, he swore she almost looked sad. To see what you were meant to see. Then she stepped through the gate. The fog shivered, the air bent, and Ari followed. The world changed in an instant. The cobblestone streets appeared again, the crooked houses lining either side, but this time the village looked different, dimmer, older, as though a century had passed in silence. Ari's skin crawled, the roof sagged deeper, the walls cracked wider, the air carried a sour, musty scent like damp earth long untouched. And unlike before, the streets were nearly empty. Only a handful of villagers moved, their steps sluggish, their faces even hollower than he remembered. Dewey led him forward, her dress brushing the stones. This way. They passed abandoned stalls, shuttered homes, windows half open to darkness. The silence weighed heavier here. The village felt hungry. Finally, they reached a worn bench facing a crumbling warung. Dewey sat, gesturing for Ari to join her. He lowered himself beside her, his heart racing. "Tell me what this place is, please." Dewey's gaze lingered on the fog-draped street. For a long time she said nothing. Then, softly, "This is not a place for ordinary people. It is a gate, a resting point between worlds. Few who stumble here ever see it clearly, fewer still return." Ari shivered. "So why me?" Her eyes met his, dark and endless. "Because you were chosen." Ari's stomach turned. "Chosen for what?" Her lips curved faintly, almost tender. "That is what you must discover." The words sank like stones into his chest. He wanted to press, to demand clarity, but something in her tone told him he wouldn't get it. Not yet. They sat in silence, the air thick with the scent of flowers. Somewhere distant, Ari heard faint voices, unfamiliar, speaking a language he couldn't place. When he looked back at Dewey, she was watching him. "You're not afraid," she said quietly. Ari swallowed hard. "Should I be?" Her smile deepened, sad and knowing. "Fear is what keeps most away, but you've already crossed the threshold twice. That means something." Her words coiled around him, both comforting and terrifying.
For the first time since entering this place, Ari realized something. He didn't want to leave. Not yet. The thought pulsed in Ari's chest like a secret heartbeat. He should have been terrified, desperate to run back through the gate, back to the world where time moved normally. But sitting beside Delwy on that worn bench, with the village breathing faintly around them, he felt something else. Curiosity. The kind that burned. The kind that killed. Delwy tilted her head, studying him as though she could hear every echo of his thoughts. "You're staying," she whispered. "Not a question. A fact." Ari licked his dry lips. "I don't even know what this place is, but if I leave without answers, it'll never let me go." A faint smile tugged at her lips. "Then you are like the others." Ari's brow furrowed. "Others?" She rose gracefully, her yellow dress brushing against the cracked cobblestones. He followed without hesitation. The mist swirled tighter the deeper they walked, curling around the houses like watchful eyes. The streets grew narrower, darker, lined with walls where moss crawled like veins. Finally, Delwy stopped before a low building whose roof sagged under the weight of years. The door creaked as she pushed it open, revealing a room lit only by the faintest glow. Ari stepped inside. His stomach dropped. The walls were covered in drawings, hundreds of them, scrawled in charcoal and faded ink. Maps of the mountain, sketches of gates, faces of people, notes in dozens of languages, some legible, some not. And on the floor, scattered like fallen leaves, lay belongings. Hiking boots, flashlights, torn backpacks, a camera with a cracked lens. "Jesus Christ!" Ari whispered. "These are the ones who came before," she said softly. "Some found their way here by accident, like you. Some were called, like you. Most never returned." Ari crouched, picking up a notebook half buried under the debris. Its pages were yellowed, the handwriting shaky. August 1998. I don't know how long I've been here. The sun hasn't moved in days. I can't remember my brother's name. If anyone finds this, don't follow the woman in yellow. Don't trust her smile. Ari's blood ran cold. He snapped the notebook shut, his gaze flicking to Delwy. Her expression was unreadable. That's not true, is it? You're not luring people here. She stepped closer, her eyes locking onto his. If I wanted to trap you, Ari, you would never have left the first time. The words hung heavy in the air, and she was right. He had left. She had let him go. But still, his grip on the notebook tightened. Then what do you want from me? Her lips curved into that faint, haunting smile. Only for you to see. Before he could speak, a sound cut through the silence, a shuffle of feet, a ragged breath. Ari turned sharply. In the far corner of the room, a figure crouched. Human-shaped, but wrong. Its skin ashen, its hair matted, its eyes wide and empty. It rocked slowly, muttering in a language Ari didn't understand. Ari stumbled back, his heart slamming against his ribs. What the hell? Delwy's voice was calm, almost gentle. Some who come here forget who they are. They stay too long. They fade. The figure lifted its head, and for a split second Ari swore he saw himself in its face. His own hollow eyes staring back. No, Ari whispered. The creature let out a guttural cry, scrambling toward the wall, clawing at the drawings as if searching for a way out. Ari's knees weakened, his chest ached. This is what happens? Delwy's gaze didn't waver. If you don't leave, if you let the mountain keep you. He spun toward her, anger flaring through his fear. Then why bring me here? Why show me this? Because you asked for answers, she said simply. And answers are never free. Ari's hand shook. He wanted to scream at her, to demand the truth, but his voice died in his throat. The room itself seemed to press against him, suffocating, filled with the whispers of forgotten hikers. He dropped the notebook and staggered out into the street, gulping the damp air. Delwy followed, silent as shadow. The village felt different now, darker. Every shuttered window seemed to hide watching eyes. Every alley breathed with unseen movement. You said I was chosen. Chosen for what? Delwy stopped in the middle of the street. Her gaze softened, her voice barely above a whisper. To remember. The words cut deeper than any scream. Ari's mind spun. To remember? Her eyes glistened in the dim light. This place is fed by those who forget, but not you. You resist it. That is why you can see me. That is why the village hasn't claimed you. Her hand rose slowly, brushing against his cheek. Her touch was cool, impossibly real. Ari's heart thundered. He should have pulled away. He should have run. But her touch anchored him, her eyes pulling him deeper than the fog ever could. He whispered, "Why me?" Her lips curved, sorrowful and tender all at once. Because you are the only one who still remembers me. The world tilted. Ari's breath caught. The fog swirled harder, the houses groaning as if alive. He didn't understand. He didn't want to. But one truth sunk in, heavy and undeniable. Delwy was not just part of the village. She was the village. And the village was not done with him yet. Ari felt the weight of those words press into his bones, though Dewi had never spoken them aloud. It was the way the air thickened around him, the way the mist seemed to coil tighter, whispering like unseen mouths. The village was alive, and it had decided he wasn't leaving. Dewi's hand lingered against his cheek, cool and grounding. Her dark eyes shimmered in the pale light, carrying something that looked like sorrow, but also inevitability. "You feel it, don't you?" she whispered. Ari's throat tightened. "I feel like I'm being swallowed." She withdrew her hand slowly, letting it fall to her side. "That's because you are. The longer you stay, the more the village claims you. It has already taken so many." Images of the hollow-eyed villagers and the scratching creature in the corner of that building flashed through Ari's mind. His stomach lurched. "Then why not let me go? Why bring me here again?" Her gaze didn't waver. "Because you still have a choice." Ari's breath hitched. "What choice?" Dewi turned, her dress trailing across the cobblestones as she walked down the narrow street. He followed, though each step felt heavier than the last. They passed shuttered windows and half-collapsed walls, the silence pressing like a scream just out of reach. Finally, Dewi stopped before a small courtyard where a lone tree grew. Its branches were brittle, its bark blackened as if burned, but its roots burrowed deep into the stones. "This tree," Dewi said, touching the bark gently, "is older than the village, older than the gate. Its roots drink what is forgotten." Ari frowned, confusion mixing with dread. "What do you mean?" Her eyes flicked to him. "Every person who wanders here leaves something behind, a memory, a piece of themselves. That is the price of passing through." Ari's pulse quickened. He remembered the warped bills in his pocket, how their faces and numbers had smeared as though erased. Not just money, memories. His voice cracked. "So what did I leave behind?" Dewi stepped closer, her eyes locked on his. "Do you remember the night of September 3rd? Ari froze. He tried to summon the memory. He remembered starting the hike on the 2nd. He remembered the fog, the gate, the stall, then the bus, then waking at base camp on the 4th. But the 3rd, it was gone. A hole in his mind. He staggered back, gripping his head. No, that's not possible." "It is," Dewi said softly. "That day belongs here now, just as so many days of so many others do." Ari's chest heaved. "Then if I keep coming back?" Her expression darkened, though her voice remained calm. "Then more of you will stay here until there is nothing left to return." The air thickened. The tree's blackened bark seemed to pulse faintly, as though feeding. Ari forced his breathing steady, his fists clenched. "Then tell me how to stop it. How do I leave without losing anything else?" For the first time, Dewi looked away. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "There is only one way. A bargain." Ari's blood ran cold. "What kind of bargain?" Her gaze flicked back to him, heavy with meaning. "The village must be fed. If you want to keep what is yours, you must give it something else." The silence stretched, heavy as stone. Ari's mouth went dry. What does it want?" Dewi stepped closer, her eyes glistening. "Memories or people?" Ari staggered back as if struck. "People?" Her voice didn't waver. "Those who are lured here, willingly or not, can take your place. If the village consumes them, it may release you. His stomach lurched violently. He shook his head, his voice raw. You're asking me to sacrifice someone? To let this place eat them? Dewi's expression was unreadable. I am not asking. I am telling you the truth. Without balance, you will not escape. No one ever has. The courtyard spun around him. The tree's roots seemed to writhe beneath the stones, hungry. His voice cracked. Why tell me this? Why help me? Her eyes softened. Because you remembered me. The words lodged in his chest like a blade. He wanted to scream, to run, to deny it all. But the weight of the warped bills in his pocket reminded him this wasn't a nightmare. It was real. He sank to his knees, his hands shaking. I can't do that. I won't. Dewi crouched beside him, her hand brushing his shoulder. Then the village will keep taking, piece by piece, until you forget your name, until you forget who you are. Ari's vision blurred. His name, his family, his childhood. He clung to them desperately, whispering them under his breath as though repetition might anchor him. But already, some things felt dimmer. The face of a teacher he once admired. The name of a street he grew up on. Gone, faint as smoke. He wanted to sob. But instead, he clenched his fists, his jaw set. Then I'll fight it! Dewi's expression was almost tender, almost pitying. No one fights the mountain, Ari. Not for long. Her words sank into him, heavy and cold. Yet somewhere deep in his chest, a spark flickered stubbornly. Maybe no one else had fought, but he wasn't ready to surrender yet. The thought burned inside Ari like a stubborn flame. The village pressed in on him with its fog, its silence, its endless hunger. But something inside him refused to bow. He would not hand over a life. He would not trade someone else's soul for his freedom. Dewi seemed to read every flicker of his defiance. She stood in the courtyard, the pale yellow of her dress glowing faintly through the mist. Her voice was soft, calm, almost mournful. You can resist, Ari, but resistance has a price. Ari staggered to his feet, wiping sweat from his brow. Then I'll pay it, whatever it takes. Her dark eyes lingered on him, searching. Even if it means forgetting everything? Even if one day you wake up and can't even remember your own name? The words hit him like a fist. For a second, he faltered. The idea of losing himself, piece by piece, memory by memory, was worse than death. But then his hand brushed against his backpack. He remembered the object hidden there, the one thing that had made him feel grounded, anchored, alive. The mirror. He pulled it out, holding it in trembling hands. His own reflection stared back at him. Pale face, dark circles under his eyes, lips trembling from fear. But it was him. And the sight of himself, whole, lit that stubborn spark again. I won't let this place erase me, he whispered. For the first time since he'd returned, Dewi's expression shifted. Her eyes widened, fear or maybe surprise. Where did you get that? Ari blinked. This? It's just a mirror. Her voice was sharper now, urgent. No, not here. A reflection is dangerous here. The ground beneath their feet rumbled faintly, as if the village itself had heard her words.
The fog thickened, swirling violently around them. Ari clutched the mirror tighter. Why? What does it do? Dewey stepped closer, her voice trembling for the first time. This place feeds on forgetting, on faces that fade, names that vanish. A reflection resists that. It reminds you of who you are. The air crackled. Distant houses groaned as though under strain. Shadows flickered in the mist, moving closer. Ari's pulse hammered. Then this is my weapon. Dewey's voice cracked, sharp with panic. You don't understand. If the village sees what you're doing, it will come for you. Her words barely left her lips before the first shadow lunged. A figure erupted from the mist, one of the hollow villagers, its eyes black voids, its body jerking unnaturally. It staggered toward Ari with outstretched arms, its mouth open in a silent scream. Ari stumbled back, raising the mirror instinctively. The figure froze, its face contorted violently, as if torn between agony and recognition. For a heartbeat, Ari swore he saw a flicker of humanity in its hollow eyes, a memory breaking through. Then the figure dissolved, crumbling into the fog. Ari gasped, staring at the mirror in shock. His hand shook, but the stubborn spark inside him roared brighter. It works. It fights back. More shadows emerged, dozens this time, their movements twitching, their mouths stretching in soundless howls. They crawled from windows, staggered from alleys, slipped through cracks in the stones. The village was waking. Dewey's voice rang sharp through the chaos. Run! But Ari didn't run. He held the mirror high, spinning to face the oncoming horde. Each time a villager caught its reflection, it faltered. Some shrieked without sound, collapsing into dust. Others froze mid-step, eyes wide with something like recognition before vanishing. The ground shook. Roofs cracked. The ground split with groaning protest. The village itself was screaming. Ari's throat burned with raw defiance. I am not yours, he shouted into the fog. The mirror pulsed faintly in his hand, the reflection glowing brighter than it should here. His face, sweaty, terrified, alive, stared back with a clarity that felt impossible here. The shadows faltered, retreating slightly. But then the air split open. At the far end of the street, the mist coiled upward, forming something immense. A shape too vast, too wrong to comprehend, limbs bending where limbs should be, a head without features, a body made of writhing fog and stone. The village's true face. Dewey's voice broke through the roar, desperate. Ari, stop! If you fight it directly, it will consume you completely. But Ari's grip only tightened, his jaw clenched. I'd rather burn than fade. The monstrous shape surged forward, the houses trembling as it moved. The air cracked like thunder, the smell of earth and rot filling Ari's lungs. He lifted the mirror higher, its surface blazing now like a shard of sunlight in the darkness. The creature's form writhed violently, its body fracturing as though the reflection itself was tearing it apart. Ari screamed, pouring everything he had into holding the mirror steady. His memories flashed like lightning in his skull. His childhood, his parents, Abdi's laughter, the first time he ever hiked alone, the way Dewey's eyes looked when she first said his name. Each memory anchored him, feeding the reflection, burning brighter. The monster shrieked in a voice that wasn't sound, but pure pressure, rattling his bones. The ground split, swallowing houses whole. The sky tore open, showing nothing but endless fog. And then, silence. The creature shattered like glass, dissolving into fragments of mist that scattered into nothing. Ari collapsed to his knees, the mirror clattering to the ground. His chest heaved, his vision blurred, but the street was empty. The shadows were gone. The village was silent once more. Dewey stood a few feet away, her eyes wide, her face pale. For the first time, she looked afraid. "You don't know what you've done," she whispered. Ari's breath rasped in his throat. "I survived." Her gaze trembled, but the mountain, it never forgets. Her words hung heavy, and Ari knew this wasn't victory. It was only a reprieve. The village had seen him, and it would come for him again.
Ari knew it the moment Dewey's trembling voice cut through the silence. He hadn't destroyed the village. He had only torn away its mask. The mountain had seen him now, truly seen him, and nothing about his life would ever be the same. His knees shook as he forced himself to stand. The mirror, cracked but intact, lay at his feet. He picked it up carefully, his reflection jagged, broken across the fissures. Still, it was him. Still, it was proof he existed. Dewey's eyes never left his face. "You shouldn't have fought it." He glared at her, sweat dripping into his eyes. "What was I supposed to do? Let it eat me alive? Let it erase me piece by piece?" Her lips parted, but no words came. For the first time, Ari saw something in her he hadn't before. Doubt. The village around them groaned faintly, as though restless. Houses leaned further, roofs sagged lower, shadows flickered behind broken windows. But the horde didn't return. The monstrous form didn't reappear. Not yet. Ari took a step toward her. "Tell me the truth. Who are you really?" Her eyes shimmered with something that looked like grief. "I told you, I am part of this place." "That's not enough." His voice was hoarse, cracking. Her lips parted, but no words came. For the first time, Ari saw something in her he hadn't before. Doubt. The village around them groaned faintly, as though restless. Houses leaned further, roofs sagged lower, shadows flickered behind broken windows. But the horde didn't return. The monstrous form didn't reappear. Not yet. Ari took a step toward her. "Tell me the truth. Who are you really?" Her eyes shimmered with something that looked like grief. "I told you, I am part of this place." "That's not enough." His voice was hoarse, cracking. Her lips parted, but no words came. For a long moment, silence. Then, softly, "Because once I was like you." The words punched the air from his lungs. Dewey's voice trembled as she continued. "I came here long ago, longer than I can measure. I was lost, just as you were. The mountain called me, and I answered. And when I realized what it was already too late." Her gaze met his again, dark and endless. The village needed someone who could remember, someone who could speak, who could lure others without fading. That became my role. That is why I can still feel, why I can still want. Ari's chest burned. "You were trapped, and now you're trapping others." Her lips quivered. "I never wanted this, but if I don't, the village takes more from me, piece by piece." She touched her chest lightly, as if afraid of what wasn't there anymore. "I've lost so much already." The courtyard felt heavier, the fog curling around them like eavesdropping spirits. Ari whispered, "Then help me. Help me leave
for real this time. Her face broke into something fragile, almost human. "If you leave, Ari, I will fade. The village won't let me exist without you." The weight of her words pressed into him, his fists clenched, his chest heaving. He thought of Abdi, of the real world waiting outside this cursed fog. He thought of his life, fragile and flawed but his own. And he thought of Dewey, her eyes shimmering with the last remnants of humanity, caught in a cage she could never escape. "You don't belong here," he rasped. Her smile was soft, sorrowful. "Neither do you, and yet here we are." The ground rumbled beneath them. Cracks split the cobblestones. The air thickened with the sour stench of rot. The village was stirring again, angry, impatient. Dewey's voice rose above the groan of stone. "Go, Ari, before it wakes fully." He shook his head, his jaw set. "Not without you." Her eyes widened, glistening. "You don't understand. I can't pass the gate anymore. It binds me here. If you try to take me, it will destroy you." The fog hissed, closing in tighter. Shapes flickered within it, countless eyes watching. The village was listening. Ari stepped closer, gripping her hand. Her skin was cool, fragile, almost weightless. "Then I'll make my own way out, and you're coming with me." The village roared. The air exploded with force, shadows surging from every alley, from every doorway, rushing at them like a tide. Hollow faces, blackened eyes, mouths stretched in silent screams. Ari raised the mirror high. Its cracked surface blazed with a fractured light, cutting through the fog. Shadows recoiled, screeching voicelessly, but more kept coming. The ground split wider, swallowing whole houses. The tree with blackened bark shuddered violently, its roots writhing like serpents. Dewey clung to him, her face twisted with fear. "You'll die, Ari! Please!" But Ari's voice was a snarl. "Then I'll die fighting!" He dragged her toward the gate, the mirror's light carving a path through the horde. Each step was agony, the air pressing against him like iron, the fog clawing at his lungs. The gate loomed ahead, its rotting beams trembling as though resisting him. A shadow hurled itself at them, massive and formless. Ari swung the mirror, its reflection splintering across the cracked glass. The creature shrieked, dissolving into dust. They reached the gate. The wood groaned, the carvings pulsing faintly like veins. The force against them was immense, like trying to wade through a hurricane. Ari roared, shoving Dewey forward. "Go!" She shook her head violently, tears streaking her pale cheeks. "I can't, don't you see? I can't leave." "Then I'll carry you out." His arms wrapped around her, pulling her close. Her body felt lighter than air, fragile as smoke. The mirror blazed one final time, a burst of searing light. The gate cracked, splintering with a deafening snap. The fog screamed, and everything went white. When Ari opened his eyes, he was lying in the tea fields. The sun was bright overhead, too bright. Birds chirped, cicadas buzzed. The world was alive again. He sat up, gasping. His pack was beside him, heavy. His watch ticked normally. For a moment, relief washed over him. He had escaped. But then, his heart clenched. Dewey. The field was empty. Only the wind moved, brushing the leaves. His trembling hand reached into his pocket. The mirror was still there, its surface cracked. He lifted it slowly. His reflection stared back, haggard, pale, alive. But behind him, faint and blurred, a figure in yellow stood smiling.
And that was how Ari's story ended. Or maybe how it began. He walked out of the mountain, yes, but the mountain didn't let him go. Some ties can't be cut, not with gates, not with mirrors, not even with courage. Because what is remembered never really leaves. So, what do you think really happened to Ari? Did he escape the mountain, or did the mountain simply let him go because it knows he'll come back? And here's the bigger question. If Dewi was once a hiker just like him, how many more are out there, trapped inside that fog, waiting for someone to remember their names? Now, imagine this. You're hiking in East Java one misty morning. You check your watch, but the time never moves. You hear laughter in the distance, but when you look, the trail is empty. And then, just for a moment, you see a flash of yellow between the trees. Would you follow her? Or would you turn back, knowing you might leave a part of yourself behind forever? Tell me in the comments, because who knows, maybe the mountain isn't finished with you either.